Morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. It gives me great pleasure to announce Warren Gatland as head coach of the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa in 2021. We are absolutely delighted to have secured Warren's services again. He is a truly exceptional coach and his professional record speaks for itself. Having been head coach of the Lions for 2 consecutive tours, Warren arguably understands this very special touring side as well as anybody in the world game. Warren's contract will start in August of 2020 and will work on an exclusive basis until the conclusion of the tour 12 months later. The reason why we've made the appointment 2 years before the tour starts is so that Warren can be heavily involved in planning the logistical, the scheduling and other elements of the tour, which is something that he and I were very keen to ensure was possible. We are all very much looking forward to working alongside Warren and firmly believe that his appointment gives us the best chance of success in 2021. Let me now hand over to the Lions head coach, Warren Gatland.
Thanks, Ben. Everyone, I'm incredibly excited about this appointment, and as Ben mentioned, it gives me a great opportunity to be involved in the early parts of planning, preparation and scheduling for this tour. South Africa is a great country to tour. They have a proud rugby history and tradition. It's a tough place to go and tour, but really excited about the challenges ahead. The hospitality in South Africa will be amazing, and the journey over the next 2 years as we plan for the tour and look forward to what will be an exciting, challenging, tough rugby challenge in South Africa is something that both the fans and everyone can really get excited about.
Warren, congratulations on the appointment. You said after the last tour to New Zealand that you hated parts of it and you were done with the Lions. You've obviously decided to go again. Why the change of heart?
Look, I love the Lions as a concept. There were parts of the New Zealand tour that were incredibly challenging. Any Lions tour for players and coaches involved, it's probably the hardest thing that you'll ever do as a coach in terms of planning and preparation, and the scrutiny of the press is always something that's at the forefront of a Lions tour. But one of the things about when I reflected back on New Zealand is the hospitality that we had there, the atmosphere in the games. That was incredible. And being part of the Lions and the opportunity to go to South Africa potentially to finish something, there's some unfinished business, having been involved as head coach in the previous 2 tours. So when I met Ben and we spoke briefly about the potential to, was I interested, I couldn't turn my back on this challenge, and to think about the possibility of going and leading the Lions in South Africa was something that, I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a real rugby hotbed in terms of going over there, and the Lions in the past have always found it quite difficult given their history, how physical they are on the game, with the game, how passionate they are. But I felt and spoke to my family and thought, this is something that I really couldn't turn my back on.
The official schedule's yet to be announced, but if, as expected, it's shorter with less games, 5 weeks, 8 games, will that be enough time to find your best 15, 23 and give players enough of a chance to impress you for selection?
And it's a good question, that in terms of looking at the planning and the scheduling hasn't been finalised yet, and I think there's negotiations underway with the Pro 14 and the PRL in terms of potentially when their finals are locked in, how much time that we're going to have together as a group before we go on tour. Looking at the games in South Africa, the games at sea level and then potentially at altitude as well, and how we plan around that. And then given the opportunity for those players having enough game time before you select the first test. Now, one of the things that we have done in the last previous tours is we've said to all the players on the squad that we've guaranteed them a start in the first 3 games, and I've felt that's been a real positive for those players that have felt that they've had that opportunity, because it gives you a chance to put yourself in the shop window, so to speak, and if you play well and the team plays well, then you've got perhaps an opportunity to be a part of that Test 23 or the Test 15. So we may have to look at that. Do you go with a little bit more preconceived ideas about what your potential Test team might look like from the start, and perhaps pick accordingly? So it's a long way off, but definitely those thoughts have been going through my head already in terms of how we look at the planning and the selection of the squad, and potentially the selection of the lead-up games before the first test.
What we do know at the moment is you're going to need a new captain with Sam Warburton retiring. If you were choosing your British and Irish Lions captain now, who would it be? maybe a top 3 contenders.
Look, I don't know. First of all, I think it's going to be someone who's got the respect potentially of everyone in the squad. I mean, ideally you want someone to be coming from a team that's been performing well and been successful. So Alan Jones probably comes to mind at the moment in terms of what he's achieved in the game. Owen Farrell, definitely been incredibly successful as well. So potentially those two players are players that you would talk about if you're picking a team right now, but 2 years away is a long time, and you never know what's going to happen in the game in terms of who comes to the forefront, who's been successful, and potentially who are your potential candidates.
And just finally, Warren, the last series of course ended in a draw. Some people liked it, some people didn't. If we were in the same situation again, would you like to see the third test go to extra time to find a winner?
I don't think at the moment that's been discussed, and that's a potential, and I don't see that as a bad thing. But the only way you could have the third test as a decider if it was 1-1. I mean, you couldn't have the first test being drawn or the second test being drawn and then go into a drawn series. So it would have to be a 1-1 scenario going into the third test, and if that was drawn, then potentially you could go into extra time. But looking back on that. We came away having toured New Zealand and getting a drawn series, and I think we can take a lot of pride in what we achieved. But something I think was pretty special with what happened after that third test is that I think we have one of the most iconic photographs of all time when you see those players of both the All Blacks and the Lions intermingled with Sam Warburton and Kieran Reid sort of holding the trophy aloft, and I think that's definitely going to be one of the iconic photos that will go down in history as part of Lions heritage.
Thank you.
Question for Ben. Ben, you've not done a formal recruitment process this time. Were there any other candidates you had in mind, or was it a case of just going out and getting Warren and convincing him to do it again?
There was one candidate that we had in mind. It was Warren, and we made sure that we got him.
And Warren, you mentioned continuity in the past as being key from Lions Tour to Lions Tour. You've got it now, obviously, with yourself doing it for third time in a row. Will that be something you'll look at when it comes to picking your squad and your assistant coaches as well? Yeah,
that's been important. It's been definitely one of the things that, having been involved in 2009, and given that you have limited preparation time, limited time on tour, if there is potentially a reduction in the number of games, then definitely those people that have been part of previous tours, it does mean you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and that's not just from a coaching aspect or from players that have been on previous tours. We've had continuity with a lot of the management team as well, in terms of the background management, strength and conditioning, and the medical team as well. So that's definitely been an advantage for us, having some of that continuity of people who understand the pressures of a Lions tour, what it's like, and have also got some familiar relationships as well that can sort of fast track a lot of the difficulties that you might have potentially if you're bringing a whole new group together for the first time.
Warren, because you're talking about the potentially shorter tour, if you don't give players the chance to put their hand up on the pitch, does that leave you at a slight disadvantage, and are you going to continue to lobby to have as close to what you had in New Zealand as possible?
Yeah, look, it does. that's going to be hard. And from my experience, one of the biggest things to try and achieve on a Lions tour is not about what you do on the field, it's what you do off the field. You know, you try and get some harmony within that team where everyone's pulling together to do the best that they possibly can for the whole of the squad. And so I've got to make sure that I get that right and make everyone feel a part of it. Ironically, and I've mentioned this before, as the tours get potentially shorter, I mean, what Clive Woodward did in 2005, having 2 teams, it's probably the easiest solution if you wanted it. But then that, does that undermine and devalue the jersey, and does that sort of split the squad apart? So we spoke about that, and it's not the pathway that we want to take. We want to try and pick a group of players that we want to keep pretty tight, and it's just how we manage them and make them feel that definitely if you do get selected, that you've got a chance to. Everyone wants to be a part of the test 23, and we've got to do our best to give everyone that opportunity. And so the challenge then for the players is not always about how they perform on the field. What sort of people are they in terms of what can they bring to the squad in terms of their personality? Are they good characters off the field? Do they add value to the squad? And so those are the sorts of things that you're looking for, in terms of the type of people that you want to bring along.
And do you think this would be your last tour with the Lions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would have done the round. So look, the challenge for me is as a head coach to go undefeated in a Test series, and if I was able to achieve that in the squad, that would be something pretty special. And I've been extremely privileged to have the honour of being involved, and this will be my 4th tour, and so thankful to be given the opportunity. And I kind of feel, and I really appreciate the support that I've had from someone like Ian McGeechan, who's been very positive in my appointment, and I think having had that experience as a young boy growing up in New Zealand and what happened in 1971, and then having played against the Lions and what that meant to me as a player, being on the other side, knowing this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that only comes around every 12 years. And then I reflect back in 2001 when I was coaching Ireland, and as a coach, I was disappointed we didn't get more players selected for that tour. So understanding that aspect, having coached Wasps and having players get selected in 2005 and on the tour to New Zealand. So, it's a lot of different ways to come in and look at it from a different perspective. And but being head coach is something incredibly special and something I'm proud of, and something I'm going to give 100% to.
Ben, we keep asking and talking about potentially shorter tours. What stage are the negotiations with South Africa? What are we looking at the moment?
Well, so we know a decision was taken in San Francisco a couple of years ago now. So there are 8 matches on the tour, 3 of which will be test matches. We have a very collaborative relationship with our counterparts in South Africa, so we work closely with them to work out the right venues for those 8 matches, and we hope to do that over the coming months and have an announcement at some point over the summer. But we are firmly working towards the agreement from San Francisco, which was 8 matches, 3 of which are tests.
So it was 10 in New Zealand, Warren. Does that maybe mean a slightly smaller squad to keep everyone competitive, so you haven't got players sitting around doing nothing? Yeah,
absolutely. And Ben and I have already potentially spoken about that. The biggest challenge is, and even though New Zealand was a bit different, I think in the past, is trying to prepare and trying to win that first test. You do everything that you can. I know there was criticism, and I do things different in terms of how we handled bringing in extra players, and in 2017 we did the same in 2013 as well, not under the same scrutiny, and we've discussed about the potential of how we may schedule the possibility of not having a midweek game before the first test, so you try and do the best possible thing you can in protecting that 23. And like I said, the scheduling hasn't been decided on, but if you did pick a smaller squad, you may potentially announce extra players as the squad is announced as well, that may come out to cover us for a midweek fixture between maybe the first and second test. So those things haven't been decided on, but those are part of the discussions that Ben and I are having at the moment, and hopefully over time we'll get a little bit closer to finalising what our direction is going to be.
There's a lot of games to be played in 2-year period, but as it stands at the moment, what are you expecting from South Africa as a team?
Well, I think under Rassie Erasmus, there's no doubt that there's been some improvement, and I think they're definitely a side that are going to be tough to beat. I think we'll see them perform well as they traditionally have in the World Cup. England found it tough a couple of years ago when they went out there, that they weren't, as everyone expected, an easy side to beat. And for us, the challenges, and it's always tough acclimatising to altitude. That takes a little bit of time, and how we handle that. So look, there's no doubt when they put that green jersey on, and the prospect of playing the Lions, what it means to those South African players and the fans. They're passionate about the game. And I'm expecting South Africa to be a really tough, challenging tour, and it was in 2009. It was probably some of the most physical rugby that I'd been involved in and witnessed, and we're expecting the same in 2021.
Warren, given your love of the Lions and your association with them for so long, are you frustrated that it doesn't seem to be necessarily shared by World Rugby and the rest of the game, that every few years the Lions coach comes back and pleads for more time and more time to develop the squad and more space to work with, but each time you end up fighting for your corner? Is it a frustration that doesn't seem to be shared?
I wouldn't agree with those points. I think that the people I talk to are conscious what massive role the Lions do play in the game. I think the Southern Hemisphere definitely want to support the Lions. I mean, they think that's very important, and then that every 4 years the Lions tours, and every 12 years to their own country. So they're very, very positive about the Lions as a concept and making sure that it continues. And for us, we have to keep fighting for preparation, that we get enough time together, make sure that the matches are right, so that we give ourselves the best opportunity to go to the Southern Hemisphere and be successful. So that's a challenge, and the challenge is to work with our partners, which are Pro 14, PRL at the moment, to make sure that that relationship is positive. And if that relationship is positive, that they give us the, I don't think we're being excessive in asking for, we don't want 6 weeks together. We're looking for a couple of weeks of preparation before you leave the shores to give yourselves the best chance. And I think everyone wants potentially that opportunity. I mean, we want to be in the best possible shape to go out and win a Test series. And I think the Southern Hemisphere want the Lions to be as strong as they possibly can, because they see it as a really important part of their scheduling every 4 years. Yeah.
I would add to that, if I may. So as Warren said, we do have a very good relationship with all the different stakeholders across the world game, and we make a real effort to get out there and strengthen those relationships continually. And the sense that certainly I get is that they are very supportive and want to work with us to make sure the Lions can continue to thrive and grow into the future, so that more and more people can experience the very wonderful and special thing that Lions tours are.
Warren, you've obviously got a gap between the World Cup and starting your contract with the Lions. Have you decided what you'll do with your time?
Not at the moment. I finished with Wales after the World Cup, and I'm talking to a couple of people at the moment, but nothing is. There's nothing formal at the moment, and hopefully in the next few months I'll make a decision about what my future is going to be. Potentially after the Lions.
And Ben, there was as well as the 8 games, there was a suggestion of having a match here at Twickenham as an extra game before the tour. Is there any possibility of that?
So our focus now has to be on those 8 matches, and over the next couple of months we'll be working out where those matches will be, which venues they will be in, as Warren said, how we deal with things like altitude challenges and making sure we have a nice geographical spread across the country, given that this is a tour. So our focus right now very much is on those 8 matches, not on other matters at the moment.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Warren and Ben are going to go for a photo now, and then we'll be into the briefing rooms outside and broadcast. I'll stand by.